Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Parenting Reboot podcast, where we talk about how to raise resilient children for a future which is going to be super dominated by technology, by all things digital, as well as AI. We're seeing that, trends about what your toddler needs to eat is catching up faster than we can even catch our breath as parents. So, today on this show, I'm joined by this wonderful writer, a new mom who lives out of Silicon Valley. This is Kamakshi. Hi,
Hi.
Kamakshi. Welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Thank you for having me.
She, I believe, loves telling stories about nature, about wildlife, food, and travel and culture and sports. She's also currently working on her new business, Roots and Reflections, which is a personal and historical biographical services. Which helps people preserve their histories and legacies. So that is something super exciting that she's working on. And when she's not busy doing all things creative, she's definitely trying to Instagram or Google the next awesome recipe she can cook up for her toddler. So as you can see, she's a busy mom. She's doing so many different things. So Kamakshi, I want to talk to you today about, what it is like to be a new parent in this digital age,
hmm
all things postpartum, and how you're doing right now.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So let's start by talking about how postpartum was for you. Like, right? You and your partner live in California. Assuming you're raising your son by
Yes.
yourself. So tell us all about that journey. How was postpartum like, and did you have any support?
Yes. Okay. So I gave birth in March 2024. I chose to have a C-section. So my postpartum recovery was that, but I had a lot of information from the doctor, so I was pretty prepared for that. In terms of support, I had a lot of support. My partner, his company gave fairly decent paternity leave. My parents were here, my in-laws were here, everyone was here for the delivery. So in terms of support, I was very, very, very lucky. Like I had to do nothing except look after baby and look after myself. So very fortunate in that regard. Physical recovery was fine, luckily. Mental recovery was not good at all because I don't think I was prepared for how it can. Obviously, it's different for person to
It's
person,
different. Totally.
but how it would impact me, because in all the prenatal classes that I did, they said things like, yeah, postpartum blues, baby blues, mood swings, things like that. And I have gone through PMS symptoms. So I said, okay, we'll figure it
It's
out.
going to be
But
similar.
yeah, little did I know. It was, I have never felt so helpless mentally, like just unable to control my thoughts. It was like I think for maybe 2 or 3 weeks postpartum, like right after baby, after we came home, like dot every day at 4 o'clock, I would start crying. And like, crying like someone has passed away, like crying, big, big tears for 2, 3 hours, I would cry. And everyone's trying to, like my husband and my in-laws would be like, okay, just go for a walk, leave the baby, take a break, all those things. But there was just this like overwhelming thing of how am I going to manage with this child now once everybody goes back? My parents live in India, my in-laws live in Australia. How will we manage with this child? My husband will go back to work. What am I going to do with this baby in the house all day? Just me and the baby. And like my mother-in-law and my mom were like, it'll pass. It's just a question of going through these few weeks and, mentally it'll become better. But I just could not see that. Like literally, I couldn't envision it. Like we were in March and, my mom was like, oh, summer's coming up. It'll be nice. You can go for a walk. And I was like, I cannot see till April also right now. There's just this like fog. So that was not great. And then a little bit later in postpartum, I started experiencing a few postpartum symptoms. Hair loss was a big one. Not prepared for that. I read a lot of people said, yeah, you lose hair. I was not prepared for that. And like all these classes, like I said, the prenatal classes just say it in passing. Yeah, hair loss. But it was like, your confidence is anyway shaky after you've given birth with your body's changed and this and that. and then this other thing is happening. And where I found solace is where like technology comes in. Where I found solace and support is in I joined like these Facebook groups of it's the month and the year that your baby is born. So I joined March 2024 Facebook groups, and it's mothers from around the world. And so there, like someone or the other would always be like, either my baby's doing this or this is happening to me, or and you can find like so many mothers were commenting, posting about hair loss or like hot flashes at night or feeding issue, whatever it is. But that's where I found that community where like medical advice and none of that stuff helped me. Knowing that there were other mothers going through the same things right now versus my mom and my mother-in-law saying, yeah, we also went through it 35 years ago. Um, it helped to know that there's this, okay, this is normal, this is happening. And I found that only through like social media. So,
Did it
sorry,
get
rambling a bit.
overwhelming? No, no, this is all amazing because like you're right. Like when you go through the journey with other mothers who are probably going through the same thing as you, it feels far less lonelier.
Exactly.
And we have technology to thank for that,
Yeah.
right? But I wonder, did it get overwhelming at any point, right? For example, for me, because I had my girl around like end of December, so she was born in dead winter in Canada.
Mhm.
And I felt the same way. Like I was trapped, and the only thing that I could do was scroll endlessly while I was trying to breastfeed her. And after a point, it did get to me. Like, so did you experience something similar, right? Was social media overwhelming in the sense, did you find yourself comparing to other mothers or women out there, or feeling like you had to perform motherhood a certain way because of what you're seeing on social media channels?
I think just to answer the performing question, at least in that first 3 months postpartum, I didn't have the energy to do anything other than survive. Because no sleep, no this, no that. So performance was like just not even on the horizon. In terms of being overwhelmed, I was very, very overwhelmed. And I think social media added a little bit more to that because I hadn't posted anywhere that I was pregnant on. Nobody uses Facebook. But I didn't post on Facebook. I hadn't posted anything on Instagram. So there was no way for my algorithms to know, but they somehow found out. So from like my third trimester, I started getting pregnancy things on Instagram. And then because I would watch them, Instagram learned better and okay, whatever. Then it knew I had my baby. And so in my fourth trimester, I was getting a lot of lactation related stuff. I was lucky that I was making enough milk for my baby. Baby was latching well, so we were fortunate we didn't have those issues. But here, I delivered in the US and my baby came a month early. So I started pumping in the hospital because we had to feed him with a syringe because he was small. And then I was pumping at home. So I had a bit of an oversupply. And then I was getting all these Instagram reels and account suggestions of women, postpartum women who were heavy oversuppliers to the point where they could fill freezers, like not your fridge wala freezer, but like chest, like standalone freezers with buckets of milk. Um, and honestly, I I didn't know or I didn't pay attention when the nurse was telling me or whatever it is. But I think in like the first week or 2 weeks when I came home, I pumped and we would give our son a little bit of a bottle, this or nurse or whatever. And whatever extra milk was there, which wasn't a lot still, I think I was throwing. And later on, when I was seeing all these reels, like, oh, liquid gold, you cannot throw your breast milk, all this stuff. But then I started getting like, yeah, I use the pitcher method, and this is the best way to freeze the milk, get the air bubbles. It was horrible. And like you said, when you're up at 3 o'clock trying to feed or trying to pump, what are you going to do? You have your phone, so you scroll and you see all these things. Anyway, your brain is addled, it gets more addled because you're not sleeping. And then you see these. It was horrible. Like, I think breastfeeding was my least favorite thing about postpartum, about post pregnancy stuff. And Instagram did not help that at all.
Yeah, it tends to go the other way also very quickly, right? Like, I'm sure it's similar what I experienced in Canada, similar to what happens in US as well in terms of like those prenatal classes and stuff where breastfeeding is literally pushed down your throat
Yeah,
and
yeah,
glorified, almost over glorified to the extent that sometimes women, if they choose to not breastfeed or choose to combo feed,
yeah,
it may be looked down upon them, right?
yeah,
And that's the information that you get off of social media, off of all of these accounts that you follow, right? And oh my God, that picture method thing,
yeah,
it's great. All of this is valuable information, but
exactly.
overdosing a new mother with
Yeah,
these options that like you can do this with your body
yeah,
is too much when the focus needs to only be about her getting better mentally and
exactly,
physically so she can just be around her child and the child getting
exactly.
better, right?
Yeah,
um and it's crazy how algorithms work, right? Like the more you see, you get
terrible.
keep getting fed the
It's
same
terrible.
content.
Like I remember in my, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
I
no,
remember
no.
in my breastfeeding prenatal class, like the phrase that we'd always say is breast is best, because that's the gold standard of, there was, I can't remember. It was like a self-paced class, so you could do it online whenever you wanted. But I'm 99% sure there was not one mention of formula in that whole class at all. Like, I mean, okay, you can choose not to feed. Sometimes you may not produce enough milk for your baby. So you, like you said, you have to combo feed with formula. Sometimes you may have a surrogate or adopted or whatever. So baby's going to get formula and not get milk, whatever, breast milk. But that doesn't mean like one baby's at an advantage and one is at a disadvantage. Um, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know whatever the medical stuff is, but I think packaging it or packaging that message like that, that if you don't breastfeed you are bad, or whatever, like you said, looked down upon, is not helpful. Because
Yeah, and
when I was breastfeeding, and I hated it every time, I hated it. And I was very fortunate that my mom and my mother-in-law were like, don't do it, it's not that big a deal. If you don't want to do it, stop. And then I had a lactation consultant because I was so overwhelmed by all the Instagram information. I just spoke to a lactation consultant and she asked me, she's like, do you like breastfeeding? I said, no. She said, okay, let's work with that and let's see how to stop. And that really helped me. And then everyone was like, in 2 years or whatever it is, you're not going to be able to tell a breast milk fed baby versus a formula baby. So I feel like mothers should be told, when if they do these prenatal classes, just at least given the all the options, not just this one thing. Like,
yeah, and I feel like in today's day and age, there should also be enough emphasis on, you know, how different modes of information, like for example, social media will affect your postpartum recovery. It's time
yeah,
we build that into,
I think so.
prenatal classes or those kind of things. Like when you're talking to your, like it was astonishing to me that up until pregnancy point, everybody cared about my body, including my gyne and stuff. And after that, there was like the 6 week cutoff. By the time
Exactly.
you're 6 weeks, you're expected to bounce back, right?
Yeah.
Almost immediately.
Bounce
I
back.
see that so many workplaces call women back in the US
Yeah.
just
12
at the
weeks.
6 week mark.
Yeah,
Six
6
week
weeks.
mark too,
For some
right?
it's 6 weeks. Yeah.
Which is just insane to think about because
I can't.
postpartum is not just physical, it's severely mental and hormonal,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So all of the things that you consume in your environment, not just food that you nutritiously try to provide to your body to recover, like it's the information, it's the emotions, all of it has an
Yeah,
impact on
of
what
course.
makes you as a mother. Which gets me to thinking, if you have any views or thoughts about the performance piece of parenthood, or also talking about how much you have to rely on the internet to get all the information, right? So what was your journey with, and your partner's journey as well, when you were probably trying to Google things or find things from the internet rather than any other sources, right? How did that feel like?
I think that was, so I have a law degree and I worked as a journalist for 10 years. So I like researching and finding things. But in this case, I don't think it served me very well, because I would just go down rabbit holes and then spiral. And that's not helpful to anybody. And then I tell my husband, oh, today I saw this, today I read this, today like, and both of us were anyway running on like zero sleep. So both of us are tired. Both of us are. It was not helpful. I feel, but I think also, at least I can only speak for the medical system that I've experienced here in the Bay Area. It's and compare it to India where I grew up. In India, the doctors are a lot more accessible. So if I had questions, if I had my baby, if I delivered in India and was going through postpartum in India, I imagine I would be able to WhatsApp my doctor questions or, things like that and get a pretty immediate or by the end of the day response. Whereas here we send the message on the app, but unless it's a medical emergency, in which case you have to call 911, you don't message. They can take two, two business days. That's what the message says. Which is not very heartening, especially when you're a new mom and you're like, okay, this living thing is there. What am I supposed to do? Your first immediate reaction is like, okay, let me just Google it. And then it's up to you on like how you sift through everything that Google throws at you and what sources you trust and don't trust. And then that's up to each person. But I think, I mean, I understand a little bit that because everyone's experience is so different. Every child is different, every parent, like, there can't be a one size fits all handy like a book or a guide or something. But just something I think, okay, like I'll give you an example. My son, I had a C-section. Um, After he was born, great. We came home, everything fine. And then we saw some like white stuff in his mouth, on his tongue. And so I Googled it and it said, oh, it could be thrush. So we said, okay, which is like a yeast infection or something. We said, okay, fine. We waited to see like a day or two. And then in that day or two, I was Googling some more and they said, some account that I found said, usually yeast is you only see thrush in babies who've had in babies who've had vaginal births, like had natural deliveries, because apparently they can pick up that yeast while passing through the canal. And since I had a C-section, that didn't happen. So then this is not thrush. So we were like, okay, we were still monitoring and we sent photos to the doctor. And the doctor was like, this is very clearly thrush. So, and she said, bring baby in for an examination. We went and showed her. And I said, I read this thing online. And she's like, please stop Googling. Like, I said, okay, cool. But it was that sort of thing. Like, in that, when my brain was just mush at that time, everyone was an authority for me
Hmm.
in that time. So you could have said it's this, you could have said it's this, I would have believed both of you. So in that sense, I don't think having such easy access to the internet was good for me personally. But again, each parent is different and can control themselves from spiraling and all that stuff. But for me, it was not the best.
But you turned it into something productive too. Hey, you started your own Substack for a brief period,
Brief,
but still,
brief.
it,
Yeah.
it was tell us about how that happened, right? Like,
So,
was it
like
your
I
way of organizing stuff?
organizing thoughts mainly, because I used to be a journalist, and then I stopped writing for a while after baby and things. I just needed some way to remember how to form sentences and also just make sense of this experience because this is the first time I'm doing it. I'm not doing this sort of thing again. And so I call the Substack things that parents Google because that's what I was doing all the time, at least for the first 5 or 6 months. And then, like you said, short lived because then I stopped Googling because I was like, this is not sustainable. I can't do this to myself or my child or my partner. Um, and so then the Substack died a natural death. Right. Yeah.
So, what took over, Kamakshi? Do you think you are far more intuitive and hands-on with parenting now that you figured it a bit out, or do you still rely on Instagram, what to tell you, right? Like, now that your son's a toddler, I guess,
Yeah.
almost,
He is. Yeah.
and you did mention to me in passing that you would Google recipes or like look up Instagram reels about the next best thing to feed him. Are you still on the lookout for are you dependent on tech still to find you activities, food, and other things to do with your toddler, or are you more hands off? technology?
I think I'm more hands off in the I'm not as worried, I should say, or as anxious as I was in the first 6 months, because it was like maybe it's a millennial thing, I don't know, but I was just like, how are we suddenly responsible for a child? Like, that sort of thing. That's why we were like, oh, that's why for me, I was Googling so much just to like, oh, one day by mistake, like some hair went in, and we were like, literally, I was Googling things like, what happens if a baby swallows hair? Because we just don't know. But by 6 months, baby's grown a bit, they've got their vaccinations, like, you have to worry a little bit less. And I think you also, in my case, I was trusting myself a little bit more, at least to understand what the baby needs or what the baby wants, or uh, yeah, not like there's a the right kind of parent or anything, but just like I am my son's mother. I think I can sort of understand what he wants or what he needs. That sort of thinking. I could do more of that, which led to less Googling. But the things that you said, as he grew more aware of the things around him, started eating solids, like you said, so recipes, started crawling, walking, all these things. I definitely do turn to Instagram. It's my main social platform. That's why I keep saying Instagram for recipe ideas, because it's just my husband, my son, and me here. So, and I'm at home with my son. So I'm trying to figure out food that he'll eat, because he has his days. Sometimes he just won't eat. Sometimes he only wants to eat fruits. And like we want him to grow and be strong and healthy. So trying to figure all these things out. Instagram helps with that. There are like accounts that I get suggested that tell me like free toddler activities in the Bay Area, or like, mm, these are activities you can do in the house with like a toilet paper roll or things like that. Um, so I definitely rely on them in that. I like to see those things. Whether I implement them and is another thing. But I do like to see, oh, you can make these kinds of pancakes also, which are healthier, or you can um, try this activity, which I wouldn't have thought like a lemon squeezer can be used for, like, those sorts of things. So in that sense, I definitely do rely a lot on Instagram. So that's a positive tech interaction for me.
I want to pivot a bit because now that your son's a toddler, I'm sure like the range of activities that he's exposed to has probably grown
Hmm.
from when he was just like 6 months old. And that's been the case for me as well, right? Like I struggle to find um, activities to keep her engaged, which are not technologically influenced. So let's address the elephant in the room,
Hmm.
screen time, right?
Oh yeah.
Are you at the stage where you are, having to give some screen time for your baby? What are your thoughts on that? And how are you navigating that gently?
Okay. Um, Thoughts is like everyone do whatever works for them. Like I am nobody to give any gyan or advice. For us, like I said, my in-laws, my parents live overseas. We have relatives all over the world, so FaceTime is a given. Apparently, FaceTime doesn't count as screen time, so that's great. But FaceTime is, since he's been born, there's been constant FaceTime. So he's always had a phone in his face like this, because everybody wants to see and talk and play, and that. In terms of like watching things, for the first year, I would say, or maybe a little less than a year, we were trying to be good about it. We were good about it. We wouldn't, like, if he was playing in the living room, or if if his blanket was in the living room and he was lying around here, we wouldn't really put the TV on, just in case he ended up watching. Thoda paranoid also, maybe, I don't know. But now we've loosened up a bit. Uh, we went to India recently. Earlier this year, we went to India, which is a very long flight from the Bay Area. So we were like, it's just survival mode. If you have to keep it on for the whole flight, keep it on for the whole flight. It doesn't matter. It He didn't watch, like, or he watched in bits and pieces, whatever. But I think it's like whatever will help, especially in these challenging situations like long haul flights and all. Do what you have to do is fine. And then now, after we've come back, he's, I think for the first year, he didn't know, or he wasn't really associating characters, or like, now we occasionally we watch like old episodes of Sesame Street. So now he knows Cookie Monster and Big Bird. If he sees it somewhere outside, he'll point and say Cookie, or he can make those connections. So we're like, okay, fine. And then, thanks to Instagram, have learned about low stimulation shows versus Cocomelon, etc., which is said to be higher stimulation. So we try to watch. That's why I was like old episodes of Sesame Street, or like I grew up watching Pingu the Penguin and like Thomas the
So like
Tank Engine.
slower kind of
Very
shows.
slow, not flashy, um, not loud. And
Mm.
to the point where after a point his attention, like, he stops watching it. I'm only watching it more, but that's fine. I'm happy. So we do that occasionally, like maybe a few times a week, twice a week for like 15, 20 minutes. And we are okay with that. Just as a family, that's what we're okay with. But we're trying to be good about not, in like if he's crying a lot or if he's being fussy, if we're outside or anything, like, okay, just whip out the phone and put something on YouTube. We've been good about not doing that, and we're hoping we can continue doing that.
That's good. Like have a balance because you're navigating this and figuring it out as well. But of course, there is so much research which is continuing to build out there that okay, lesser the screen or no screen,
Exactly.
at least in the initial years, is
Exactly.
better for their development so that they do more outdoor interaction, play-based
Exactly.
interactions, and human interaction,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but this is the very generation that is going to be literally pushed headfirst into a AI AI world, right? Or a digitally, technologically advanced world. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is your hope for this generation? That what kind of a world would they grow up in, and what do you think are some of the skills they would need so that parents can start working on that or start building the foundation for such things?
um I think basically I hope they would grow up and inherit a kind world, digitally and in real life. Uh, and I think what you mentioned, I think the tools that they would need, whether that's just as common sense, a sense of perception, or whatever, is to know what is real and what is not, which is very difficult now because lines are blurring every day, more and more every day. So maybe that's something on parents. I don't know how to do it myself. I haven't given it thought. I'm hoping I still have a few years. But I think that would be an important thing that we would have to teach our
Mm,
son, is give him the tools to be able to know this is real, this is not real, uh, or or even if the lines are blurring, uh, he should be able to calibrate and gauge where to put his, what to give more attention to, or
mm,
what to, I don't want to say what to be swayed by, but uh, like, I mentioned earlier when I said, you Google something, it'll throw a bunch of links at you, and it's up to you on what to choose as the authority you want to follow.
mm,
In a similar vein, teach him enough and give him enough tools to understand where to put his trust
mm,
in, when you're presented with five options online, in the real world, in some weird third, fourth dimension. I don't know. But yeah, I think for me as a parent, that's something that I would want to be careful about.
mm.
Yeah.
That's That's good advice, definitely. And really good, thought behind it as well, right? Because that is fundamentally the key to know how you can digest all of this information that's going to be thrown at you, which is going to be 10x more than what we have
Exactly.
access to right now,
Exactly.
and to be able to still uh, trust your own self and trust that you know probably what is right and what is not right.
And I think
Um,
also, sorry, just to add, I
no,
think
no,
also
yeah.
just to know the world around you, whatever that world may look like in 25 years, 10, 15 years, whenever it is, but just know what the world around you is and what is real and what is not in that world, like outside of the screen.
Um, That's so true. One of the things I think I missed asking you, but I feel like now is still the right opportunity, Kamakshi, is
Mhm.
now that you've gone through a year full of being a new mom, right? And so many lessons and so many learnings. What is, when you look back, what are some of your learnings and advice that you would probably tell your own self if you were to do it all over again, or new parents who are trying to do it all right, right? Like who are trying to do like everything they can to be the best possible parents, especially with all the information that they receive from social media, from their own parents, from the village that is helping them raise
Yeah.
their children, right? So
Uh-huh.
when you look back, what is your learning and what would you like to share?
I think, firstly, I don't think I'm in any place to give anyone advice. So I'll just use the example that you gave of telling myself what I would have told myself before I started this. I think the main thing I would have told myself is just trust yourself. It's very overwhelming. It's great to have a village. Use the village. Definitely use the village. Let them fold the clothes, do the cooking, do whatever it is. If they are doing that, let them do it. But in the village, everybody, social media, village, everybody has a lot to say. Sometimes rightfully so because they've gone through this and whatever. But sometimes, like for me at least to function, sometimes it was just like in one ear and out the other ear. Not because it was bad advice or bad information. I was just not in the headspace to receive it. And if I had tried to process that also at that time, I wouldn't have. It would have just been too much for me. For me. Uh, so I think trust yourself. It takes time. Like again, everyone is different. Some people like get into the flow of things very easily and great. Everything is great. Like for me, I think the first few months were really difficult mentally also, and because I looked at breastfeeding as such a chore, like pumping, breastfeeding, cleaning, it feels like a cow all the time. I didn't enjoy my baby as much. Um, and so that was my experience. Someone else might be like, I love breastfeeding. It helps me connect with baby. And so this is great. So I just feel like your path is what you're on and you will figure it out. That's what I would have told myself. Like, just trust and give yourself, one is give yourself grace and one is give yourself time. You will figure it out. There's no right. That's what I'm still learning. And I think I'll still keep learning. There is no right. But uh, I think if you are worried about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? You're probably like doing a decent enough job and worrying about your child versus everything is fine. Like or we're doing everything right. Maybe you are, but I think um, like no need to second guess. You're doing it. Your child is fine. My main after maybe after 6 or 7 months, I was like, is he fed? Yes. Is he clean? Yes. Is there like no colic, no gas? He's burped? Yes. Then if he's crying, we'll figure it out. But otherwise, like it became initially, I was like, oh my God, he's crying. I can't function. My brain is focused on him. Then it became a lot easier. And that came a time for me. Sorry, I'm just rambling too much.
Now, all of this is so heartfelt and so necessary to listen because no prenatal class is going to tell you this,
Mhm.
which is exactly what we need to hear from new mothers, new parents, that not even social media chooses to highlight on is that, you know, uh, it's one of the most difficult things you're probably going to do out there because keeping a human alive is not as biologically intuitive or easy as they say
Exactly.
it, or maybe because of all the noise we have on social media, on the internet, we've forgotten how intuitively easy it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, and and that's the thing, right? This is what needs to be told to parents who are thinking about becoming parents at
Mhm.
first, right? I finally joked with one of my colleagues that you know how they make you go through 10 standard, 12 standard, undergraduation to finally be able to do a job. Like you go through
Yeah,
15 years of education to
exactly.
like minimum 15. maybe maximum 20 years of education to find
Correct.
yourself a basic, decent paying job.
Yeah.
Why don't we go through something so rigorous
Yeah.
to be able to be allowed to become parents, right? Like,
It's crazy.
it is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you think we think probably the internet and Google is going to fix
Hmm.
all the skills we needed, right? Like,
Yeah.
one of the things I kept thinking to myself also postpartum reflection was that I should have needed training in emotional CPR. Like, there is something
Yeah.
totally next level about being this emotionally resilient, grounded person when your baby's shrieking through your ears, right?
Exactly. And you've not slept.
And
I
you've not
don't
slept.
think,
You've
yeah, they don't
you're
prepare us
dehydrated.
enough. And the thing is, I feel like our parents' generation, obviously before them and all is different, like grandparents, but in our parents' generation, it was very like, yeah, this is done. You have one child, you have whatever, three children, whatever it is. But okay, you're having a child, chalo. Tomorrow, for the mothers at least, maybe, or for a majority, you're back in the kitchen, routine. Like, I know people, I'm 35. I know 40 somethings who have told me, yeah, when we had our child, had the baby in the hospital in India, went back home, and the next day relatives obviously started coming to see baby, and we had to go and make the tea for the relatives and stuff like that, despite just having come home from the hospital. I think in those generations they didn't, like, I'm sure they felt all the things that we're feeling, but they just didn't say it. Circumstances, conditioning, whatever it may be, but they just didn't say it. I think we have a lot more, again, maybe a good thing of social media and tech, is we can say these things now. Whether anybody's listening on the other side, we don't know. But at least it feels like we're voicing our thoughts. Um, and then it just, maybe it's also comforting in a way if you feel nobody's listening. But at least if you make an anonymous Instagram account and start posting. And I was like,
Mm,
what was that app at one point? Whisper Secrets. That's some weird app I remember. And they would just put up prompts and then people could anonymously post things. But just,
yeah.
like being able to get it off your chest, um, not in your diary, if that makes a difference. I think we might be one of the first uh, or probably the first generation that's comfortable openly saying that. Or many
Mhm.
of us are openly saying that. In the past, maybe it wasn't as many. Um, so that way, I think a little bit of strength in numbers and that technology has helped. Because somewhere on the internet, you'll find someone who's going through what you're going through. Um, so sorry, I was rambling and I don't know where I went from your question, but
No, no, this is no, totally. And it keeps uh, coming back to that question, right? Like, creating social media is able to create that sense of community for no matter who you are, what stage of life you are in, right? But at the same time, you have to play that game of balance, right? Based on what kind of information you're receiving, how the algorithm plays in favor or against you. But ultimately, it does create a community for especially new mothers
Mhm.
who are in most need of a community, right?
Exactly.
And in most need of not feeling lonely. And
Exactly.
I mean, even I gave birth in Canada, and I
Mhm.
also was fortunate to have both my parents and my in-laws come and help us out the entire year.
Yeah.
But I still remember, like, similar to how you were explaining, Kamakshi, was that you would still feel lonely, you would still cry, you would still feel like I am going through this physically and
Yeah.
mentally, and nobody can come very any like close
Exactly.
to how you're feeling in that moment.
Exactly.
Um, and you may be told things like, "This is not unique. Every woman goes through this. Women have been birthing for centuries." But it, that's no way to numb out um,
Yeah,
how you're experiencing and going through what you're
exactly.
going through.
Like, it's obviously true that God knows how many women have gone through all these things and experienced the things we're experiencing. Doesn't mean they didn't want to complain about it, but they just didn't. Or if they did it very quietly and with their friends, and so nobody else knew. But everybody should be complaining about how terrible this is. Like, it's not fun. This one mother I met last year at some point, she's like, if they had told us all the things that happen to us after we give birth, nobody would have a child. Like,
Yeah.
nobody would get pregnant. Because
Yeah.
pregnancy is great, like you said, while you're pregnant, the focus is on you and your body and stay healthy, and everybody is like, yeah, come and sit down, open doors, whatever it is. And then as soon as the baby's out, they're like, oh, why are you still, you don't need help anymore now. You have to take care of the child. And it's just, and then on top of that, deal with like your body falling apart.
Yeah.
And then figuring, I don't know, it was just, it's not the best experience.
It's not. But yeah, I mean, it's a it's good to know that we have probably husbands, partners, and families that are super helpful in our journey.
Mhm.
And they're not like probably they're here to hear us out, right?
Yes.
I don't know how your experience has
Yeah.
been, especially also your husband's experience, right?
Mhm.
In seeing you in the postpartum way and stuff. But I don't know where I was going with this. Sorry, I had a thought, but I think I lost that thought.
That's okay.
But let's pivot and talk about I love asking the guests on the show if they have in mind one parenting rule and one tech rule, something short, something memorable that they are already implementing in their lives, in their
Mhm.
houses, or would love to implement and stand by as they're raising young ones.
Yeah. I think my one parenting rule is don't compare. Um, it's something we practice all the time because we in any regard don't compare. Good compare, bad compare. You don't have to say, oh, this baby doesn't do this, but my baby already does this, or oh, this baby's already doing this, this one is still only at this stage, or just don't compare. It serves nobody. Doesn't serve baby, doesn't serve you. And then it just it like weighs on your mind constantly, and then you look for that again, speaking of my own experience, you look for that same parameter, whatever you're judging your baby by, in all other babies you meet. um so that's one thing, like I consciously I'm like, just don't compare. It's not helpful. And tech rule would be, for me, I'm speaking based on my experience with social media and Instagram, is just check myself before blindly accepting something or getting swayed by something that I see on social media. Whether it's you should be your child should be eating x grams of protein, or when I was breastfeeding, oh, you should be pumping so many milliliters of milk a day, whatever it may be. I think now it's a case of like, okay, just stop. Like, okay, you've got this information, but now stop. Do you want to do something with it? Yes. Okay, then Google and figure it out. Like, actually figure it out. Don't believe Instagram. Or like discard. Like, like I had said, because the algorithm, if you slow down on one reel about whatever, breastfeeding, I'm using the same example, then you start just seeing more of those things. And then it just becomes like a wind tunnel. And it gets very difficult to get out of it then. So to before you enter it, only I just stop myself to be like, do we want to know more about this right now or not? And then say yes, no, and then accordingly function.
Wow. Good rules generally for anybody who also doesn't have kids or
Yeah,
families in life
yeah,
to implement, right? Like really
exactly.
good rules to
What are your rules?
stand by. Still developing, but one of my one of the tech rules we used to always have at home was no phones on tables, no devices on tables.
Mhm.
Basically, if you're sitting down to eat a meal, just no devices, no screens around. Eat in silence or eat and talk.
Talk.
So
Yeah.
you're able to catch up with one another. And we do the
Mhm.
same thing with our daughter as well. We all sit on together around her with a high chair and stuff. So she likes
Yeah.
it and she finds it interesting.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so I don't know how long that's gonna last, but uh, I think I was paranoid about devices on table simply because I used to go out at restaurants and I used to see families all,
Mm,
stuck in their devices and the kid also watching something
the
on their
same.
device. So it used to feel like what kind of a world we've entered in. But that's tech rule. Parenting rule is basically like just show up every single day. That's
Mm.
kind of the rule I'm working on off late,
Uh-huh.
where it's similar to don't compare, but it's like more like you did your best. So next day you just wake up and show up, right? No
Yeah.
matter how hard it is, no matter how much you're going through, you have a baby, you have to show up for the baby every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That is a hard one.
it's a hard one.
Yeah.
Especially when you have 10 million thoughts about the world burning, the politics, and you're like you want to catch up to the news and
Exactly.
you also want to go get your nails done,
Yeah.
but
It's hard.
it's hard, yeah.
Yeah.
This was amazing, Kamakshi. Is there anything else that you think I may have missed out, and you want to like end the show with or, you know, talk about?
No, I think just again, all my experience. But I think for me, because the podcast is about tech and parenting, it's been a boon and a bane in this parenting pregnancy journey for me. As we've discussed, there have been some great times, sometimes where it's been super helpful, sometimes where it's not served me at all. And I think it'll continue being that way unless there's some drastic change and I'm like off the grid or something. For me, I think it'll always be a part of my parenting journey. And how I rely on it will probably depend on how my child also grows and the kind of person he becomes.
That is true. There is no going back from here.
Yeah.
AI has happened. It has been discovered and
Yeah.
uncovered. So it is it's same thing with social media. It's just it's going to probably be in a different form 10 years down the line, 15 years
Exactly.
down the line.
Exactly.
And as parents, we have to only adapt and learn from it.
Yeah. And like, you don't know when, sorry to just go back, but
No,
you
no,
don't know
fine.
how or what platforms might come back to help you in your parenting journey. Like I said, I don't remember the last time I posted on Facebook, but after I got pregnant, Marketplace is like my best friend because we buy like secondhand everything that we can manage. Yesterday we got a secondhand like toddler tower so that our son can stand in the kitchen and watch us cook and things like that. That's literally the only reason I go to Facebook now. But before this, I think I checked Facebook once every 2 weeks or something, just as a thing because yes, I know I have a Facebook account. So you don't know what will come back to help you or what you might drop on the way. Yeah.
That is that is true. It's always good to have some connection with your digital selves, so you're
Yeah.
able to reach out to the community
Yeah.
and they reach out to you as well, right?
Exactly. And
So
never say never. So
never say never.
yeah.
All right. Thank you so much again,
Thank
Kamakshi.
you, Deep.
For those who are listening, I am going to leave Kamakshi's website down in the description below. You can check out some
Thank
of
you.
her work. You can also check out her new and upcoming business. Reach
Mhm.
out to her through her website as well as LinkedIn, I believe.
Yes. Website's better.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Wishing you all the very best, Kamakshi,
Thank
in
you
this
so
new
much.
business as well as the rest of the parenting journey. And I
Thank
hope
you.
we stay in touch.
We will for sure. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.